Britain sent a clear message to Russia by tracking Putin's warship through the English Channel. That's the headline that caught my eye this morning, and you can bet it caught the attention of every British citizen who saw it on the newsstand. This is more than just naval monitoring. This is NATO showing its teeth, and we need to talk about what that really means. I spent years working inside one of the biggest media outlets you've ever heard of. I watched them twist stories, bury facts, shape narratives to fit whatever agenda was paying the bills that week. I walked away from all of it. Now I'm independent, I answer to nobody, and I'm going to tell you what's actually happening in the world. Before we dive deeper, I need your help. If this kind of straight talk matters to you, if you're tired of the sanitized, corporate-approved version of the news, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because YouTube doesn't make it easy for independent voices to reach people. And if you really want to support what we're doing here, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's not about the money, it's about building something that can't be bought, can't be pressured, can't be silenced. Your support means I can keep doing this without compromise. Let's get into it. The British destroyer HMS Duncan tracked the Russian warship Vice Admiral Kulikov as it passed through the English Channel toward the French port of Ushant. Now, Britain's been monitoring Russian vessels for years. Nothing new there. But here's what is new. This time it happened under direct orders from NATO Joint Command. That's a first. That's not just the UK doing its own thing. That's the entire alliance coordinating a response to what they're calling increased Russian naval activity in Northern Europe. Sources within the Royal Navy say this demonstrates strengthened Allied coordination and unity in the face of growing maritime threats. What does that actually mean? It means NATO is moving from watching to actively shadowing, from passive observation to coordinated deterrence. And the timing, right as tensions over Ukraine continue to escalate, that's no coincidence. The Russians probably just got lost again, right? Lost with a full military escort, lost with a flight plan, lost on purpose. Now let's shift gears to something that's causing real concern across Britain. A 31-year-old medical intern named Rahme Alaudan has been taken into custody in South Gloucestershire. She's facing charges of inciting racial hatred and publishing offensive communications. According to police reports during a rally supporting Gaza in London, she openly called for violent acts on the streets and expressed support for Palestinian militant groups, including those responsible for coordinated attacks. She also posted material on social media that appeared to justify the October 7th incident against Israel. Alaudan, who's been training in trauma and orthopedic medicine, is now under investigation by the General Medical Council. They're determining whether she can continue practicing medicine. After questioning, she was released on bail with a hearing scheduled for next Thursday. Her response? She posted this on a platform that's banned in several countries. Today's arrest confirms what we're being persecuted for. Britain is not sovereign. We are occupied and turned into a laughingstock for the Israeli Jewish lobby. Thank you all for your support. Details coming soon. They tried to intimidate us. Do we look intimidated? Strong words. This case raises serious questions about free speech, about where the line is between political activism and incitement, about how we handle extremist rhetoric in a society that values both security and civil liberties. It's not simple, and anyone telling you it is hasn't thought it through. If you're still with me, drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about these stories. Are we seeing NATO finally taking a harder stance, or is this just performative coordination? And on the doctor case, where do you draw the line? I read every comment, and your perspectives matter. Let's talk infrastructure, because not everything today is about conflict. Eurostar just placed a massive order with French manufacturer Alstom, up to 50 double-decker high-speed trains worth €2 billion. These will be the first double-deckers ever to run through the Channel Tunnel. The first 6 trains, each 200 meters long, are scheduled to hit the tracks in 2031. When you couple 2 of these together, they can carry around 1,080 passengers at once. That's serious capacity. Eurostar is promising increased comfort and capacity while boosting the number of services from London by 30%. They're planning to replace some of their aging fleet and raise annual passenger numbers from 19.5 million to 30 million. Experts say using double-decker trains could actually help bring ticket prices down, which would be a welcome change for anyone who's seen what Eurostar charges these days. But here's the catch. These trains will remain a unique case in Britain because the old rail infrastructure simply can't handle them anywhere else. The tunnels are too small. The platforms are too low. The entire system is built for a different era. So while Europe moves forward with modern, efficient, high-capacity rail, Britain gets to watch from the sidelines, stuck with Victorian-era infrastructure that nobody wants to properly invest in upgrading. Now let's talk about something that affects millions of Britons directly. The state pension is going up in April 2026 by 4.8% under the triple lock mechanism. Sounds good, right? The new full pension will increase from £230 to £241 per week. That's £574.50 more per year. Pensioners will be getting up to £12,547 annually. The basic pension rises from £176 to £185 weekly. Great news for retirees. Finally, some relief. Except, here's what they're not emphasizing in the headlines. This increase brings the pension very close to the personal tax allowance threshold of £12,570. And that threshold? It's frozen. It's not rising with inflation. It's not rising with pension increases. It's just sitting there, which means very soon some pensioners, maybe most pensioners, are going to start paying income tax on their state pension. Let that sink in. You work your entire life, you pay into the system, you finally retire, and now the government wants to tax your pension. Experts are warning that by 2027, pension growth will push even those who only receive the state pension into the tax bracket. The government will have to decide how to keep the triple lock system sustainable while the tax threshold stays frozen. Translation: they're going to take it back through taxation. Write in the comments if this affects you, because I guarantee this is going to become a massive political issue very soon. Speaking of costs, let's talk about grocery prices, because there's a perfect case study happening right now that shows you exactly how inflation really works. A 1-litre carton of orange juice that cost 76 pence in 2020 now costs £1.79. That's a 134% increase in just a few years. The reasons they give us: citrus diseases, extreme weather conditions, dependency on supplies from Brazil, trade wars, and new packaging requirements. Crop yields in Brazil and the US have dropped sharply due to drought and a citrus virus, which cut global production and drove up prices. Even as overall inflation has supposedly cooled, food prices keep climbing. BBC is reporting on this, and when you look at the percentage increases they list for various products, then remember what official inflation figures claim. The numbers don't add up. They blame everything on packaging costs. Maybe they shouldn't have attached those caps to the cartons, you know what I'm talking about, those little tethered caps that everyone hates. But experts warn that due to climate change, yes, climate change and import dependency, Britain will face food price shocks more frequently. And returning to previous price levels? Unlikely. Of course it's unlikely. When has any price ever gone back down permanently? Write in the comments if you've noticed juice prices skyrocketing at your local store. Now let's connect two themes, pensioners and grocery prices, and we get our next story. The Iceland supermarket chain is offering senior discounts on Tuesdays to support pensioners during the cost of living crisis. If you're retired, this information is for you. Shoppers over 60 can get discounts at checkout by showing their bonus card and age verification, maybe a bus pass or driver's license. The promotion runs until November 5th and covers about 250 products at Iceland stores popular with elderly customers. Under this offer, 8 Richmond pork sausages cost £2 instead of £2.75. Lurpak butter is £3.50 instead of £4.75. And there are Yorkshire pudding sets for £10 under some kind of pick-your-own scheme. I don't know exactly what that means. I'm not on pension yet. But if you qualify for this discount, absolutely take advantage of it. Let me ask you something. Are you finding value in this kind of coverage? Because if you are, smash that subscribe button. This channel survives on your support, and every subscription tells YouTube that independent journalism still matters. If you want to go further, consider becoming a sponsor. It's how we keep the lights on without corporate backing, without compromising, without anyone telling us what we can or can't say. Now we need to talk about something deeply disturbing. A 15-year-old named Mohammed Umarkan has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 16 years for taking the life of a fellow student, Harvey Fulgis, during a school break in Sheffield. This happened because of a conflict on social media. Think about that. A social media argument led to a young life being ended. The court found that Khan didn't act in self-defense. He acted out of malice and frustration. Video evidence shows him dancing with the weapon near the victim's body immediately after the incident. Khan had previously shown an unhealthy interest in weapons and had come to the attention of both school officials and police. yet he was never removed from the school. The victim's family stated that the school shares responsibility for ignoring warning signs. The decision to remove Khan's anonymity is intended to raise public awareness about the scale of youth violence involving bladed weapons in Britain. This is a heavy topic, so let's shift to something lighter. British company Zip World is planning to install a giant zipline about 440 meters long on the ArcelorMittal Orbit Tower in Stratford, London, in Olympic Park. They want to revitalize this landmark, which, after the 2012 Olympics, never really attracted enough visitors. If you know the orbit, you can take an elevator or walk up. And there's already this slide. Basically, you can slide down around the tower on your backside. I've done it. It was fun, but over very quickly. Now they want to add a zip line that will carry tourists from the top of the tower directly to the London Stadium and somehow back. How they get you back up, I have no idea. Maybe they'll use a giant slingshot. Regardless, the project is awaiting approval from Tower Hamlets and Newham authorities. If approved, the attraction could draw up to 60,000 people annually. The tower, created by sculptor Anish Kapoor and engineer Cecil Balmond, is already known for having the world's largest tunnel slide and an observation deck with panoramic views of London. Write in the comments, would you risk riding a zip line at that height, 440 meters, almost half a kilometer? Now let's get into politics. According to the British press, negotiations between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, reportedly planned for Budapest, have been postponed for 4 reasons. Analysts say Moscow is not only stalling to continue operations in Ukraine, but also refusing to meet because, first, a visit to Hungary would be humiliating for Putin, who's under an international warrant for alleged actions during the conflict, which limits his ability to travel. Second, Russia fears for the security of such a trip, since Hungary is surrounded by allies of Ukraine. Third, ending the conflict would require the Kremlin to acknowledge that Russia hasn't been able to fully annex occupied territories and would need to return mobilized personnel to civilian life, which threatens internal stability in Russia. And fourth, relations with the US remain fragile and both sides fear a diplomatic failure. The choice of Budapest as a meeting location raises controversy because of its symbolic significance. That's where Russia, in 1994, promised to respect Ukraine's borders. So says the British press. Against this backdrop, according to the Metro newspaper, Russia carried out large-scale strikes on Ukraine. Attacks using advanced missiles and drones hit Kyiv, Odessa, Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava, Kharkiv, Sumy, and Zaporizhia regions. In response, NATO scrambled F-16 fighters from Romania and Typhoons from Germany after missiles approached the border near the Danube. Romania's Ministry of Defense called the strikes a threat to regional security. According to Kyiv, the strikes came in response to Ukrainian strikes using British Storm Shadow missiles on targets in Bryansk and Saratov regions. Volodymyr Zelensky stated that the attacks confirmed the futility of Russian diplomacy and again called on the West to provide long-range weapons and strengthen sanctions. The only thing I found interesting in this news, in response, NATO scrambled fighters. Seems to me like the bees suspect something. What do they suspect? I don't know, but they're definitely acting suspicious. Here's what the newspaper concludes. Moscow, refusing to compromise on Ukraine, is intensifying hybrid attacks against Europe, including cyber strikes, drones, and violations of NATO airspace. After the failure of the planned Putin-Trump summit in Budapest, the Kremlin continues insisting on conditions that amount to Kyiv's surrender and Ukraine's rejection of its Euro-Atlantic course. Experts believe Russia is waging a hybrid third world conflict, and the Ukrainian situation will drag on for at least another 18 months. Putin, fearing US supplies of long-range Tomahawk missiles, is increasing pressure on the West, viewing control over Ukraine as key to Russian dominance in Europe. These are not small claims. This is the British establishment press saying openly that we're in the early stages of a broader confrontation. And whether you agree with that assessment or not, the fact that it's being stated this bluntly should concern everyone. Are you still here? Good, because we're not done. Drop a like if you're getting something out of this. And seriously, if this kind of unfiltered analysis matters to you, think about supporting the channel as a sponsor. No corporate money means no corporate influence, and that's how I want to keep it. Now back to domestic British events. Police decided not to press charges against 4 men who were detained for projecting images of Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew and Donald Trump onto the walls of Windsor Castle during Trump's state visit to the UK. The installation included photographs, video footage, and a quote from a book Trump wrote that was addressed to Epstein saying, "You're the best." This stunt was likely carried out by the group led by donkeys, which posted images of the protest on social media. Those detained on suspicion of malicious communications and public order offences were released without any consequences. Thames Valley Police announced the investigation was closed, so if you have a good long-range projector, well, there's one way to use it. Royal news. King Charles and Queen Camilla arrived in Rome for a state visit, specifically to the Vatican, where they will meet and pray with Pope Leo. This is the first time since the Reformation in the 15th century that such a meeting has occurred. The visit, intended to emphasize unity between the Anglican and Catholic churches, is being seen as a historic step in strengthening Christian cooperation in the face of global challenges. A joint service will be held in the Sistine Chapel featuring combined choirs, and at the Church of St. Paul outside the walls, the king will become an honorary member of the Abbey's Brotherhood. Pity he won't become the brain of the Abbey, but there you go. Now let's turn to a topic that's on practically every newspaper front page today. A migrant from Iran, who was previously deported to France under the one-in, one-out scheme, has made it back to Britain on a small boat less than a month after his removal. This program supposedly means that for every illegal arrival returned to France, London will accept one refugee with proper documentation and the right to protection. The man claims that in France he was subjected to violence and exploitation by smugglers and didn't receive adequate protection. The UK Home Office confirmed his detention and stated their intention to take action. Not much more to add there, except that the system clearly isn't working as advertised. Now, if you're someone who enjoys walking on beaches, here's something you should know. Dozens of beaches in Swansea, Gower, and Neath Port Talbot have been polluted by thousands of plastic discs like these. They washed out of Welsh water treatment facilities after a power failure and increased sewage volumes. These discs, about the size of a £1 coin, are used for biological water treatment. Company representatives said the leak was quickly stopped and measures have been implemented to prevent recurrence. Natural Resources Wales is conducting an investigation and monitoring the coastline, while local authorities have begun cleaning affected areas. Witnesses describe beaches literally covered in these discs, tangled in seaweed and debris, so if you want a souvenir, take a beach walk, I guess. Authorities in Richmond-upon-Thames have cancelled a £150 fine issued to a garden resident for pouring coffee remnants into a street drain. Burku Esenyurt, who was fined, explained that she poured a small amount of coffee from her disposable cup before boarding a bus to avoid spilling it. However, 3 inspectors fined her under environmental protection laws that prohibit dumping liquid waste into storm drains. The woman called the incident shocking and noted there were no warning signs on the street. After public outcry, the municipality acknowledged the violation was minor and said the fine would be cancelled upon appeal. They also apologized for what happened. Esenyurt stated that the law requires clear explanations and warning signs about what you can and can't do. Think about that. Pouring out a sip of coffee gets you a £150 fine. Meanwhile, we just talked about treatment plants dumping thousands of plastic discs onto beaches, and that gets an apology and an investigation. The priorities seem a bit off, don't they? So that's where we are today. Britain tracking Russian warships through the Channel under NATO command. A doctor taken into custody for inflammatory statements at a political rally. Pensioners about to start paying tax on their state pensions even as grocery prices soar by over 100% on basic items. A teenager sentenced to life for taking another teenager's life over a social media dispute. Trump projected onto Windsor Castle with no charges filed. A migrant deported to France, making it back to Britain in under a month. And a woman nearly fined £150 for spilling coffee. What do you think about the coffee fine story? Fair enforcement of environmental law or bureaucratic absurdity? And what about the Iranian migrant who returned to Britain? Is the system working or is it completely broken? Write your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. If you found this episode interesting or useful, hit that like button. Share it with friends who care about what's really happening in Britain and beyond. This is Andrew Meet Rich, and I'll see you in the next one. Because there's always something happening in the lives of ordinary Britons, and somebody needs to tell you about it without the corporate filter. Stay sharp out there.